I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast with a preview of next week's episode.
That actually spoils the entire episode. No.
Well, we don't know that yet. Well, I mean, for next week's serial, we don't know if it spoils the entire serial until next week. We'll all watch it and be like, wow, it actually spoiled the entire serial.
Just 3 minutes in, we know the entire plot because of the preview. But this week we watched Doctor Who and the Silurians. The only Doctor Who serial ever to feature Doctor Who in the title, I think.
Yeah.
It was actually a production error, surprisingly enough.
Well, at that time, all the scripts were still delivered with Doctor Who and the blank as the title on the script. But then when it got to the production studio, they were supposed to take off the Doctor Who but then they forgot to, I guess, during this serial, so we ended up with Doctor Who and the Silurians.
It's actually kind of odd because, as we know, the Doctor isn't named Doctor Who, so I'm not sure why they would produce the serial scripts with that naming convention.
Yeah, after this they stopped doing
strange.
that.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly. And I just noticed this was novelized as Doctor Who and the Cave Monsters, which is a way worse title for the serial.
Yeah, I think I read that the working title of this serial was just The Monsters or something like that. Probably would have been the most generic title we've seen.
Yeah,
could literally describe almost any serial.
Well, except Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve.
Well, hey, the abbot could be considered a monster.
That's pushing it a bit. That's pushing it.
Well, he was going to have the what's-his-face assassinated, but...
Yeah, that's pushing it still.
Anyway, this is the start of a couple 7-episode serials, I think, as we mentioned before, so, yeah.
So it begins with two guys going into a cave.
Right. Did you watch this 2-minute intro sequence after the rest of the episode like I recommended?
No.
Oh, yeah, because this spoils... You find out at the end of episode 1 anyway, but this shows the main villain creature thing, kind of.
Yeah, but if you were going to watch it somewhere else, you'd have to watch it before the final, 4 minutes. Because it explains why the Doctor goes into the cave, and if you watch it after the Doctor goes into the cave, then it doesn't make sense either.
Well, they explain it through dialogue, midway through the episode, and then you're like, oh, that's what that was at the beginning.
Yeah.
So you just wouldn't get the visual on it, technically. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter because they show up this episode anyway. But yeah, the two guys go into the cave, and one of them gets killed by a T-Rex thing.
Yeah, by a dinosaur. The dinosaur that shows up at the end of this episode then doesn't show up for 4 episodes.
Yeah, that was kind of an underdeveloped plot there. That was one of my main problems with this serial. It looks like a T-Rex / Allosaur type of dinosaur, but it's really small.
Looks like Godzilla to me.
Yeah, okay.
I mean...
Yeah, it actually did. Godzilla! No, I don't know.
What? Anyway, it cuts to the Doctor working on his new car, which looks like the old one, but is painted yellow. Like bright yellow.
The license plate says Who Won or something like that.
Yeah, haha, funny. And Liz comes in and wants to know when the Doctor's going to be done making his old piece of junk work. And he's like, oh, it already works. And then he hits it on the bonnet and then it starts running. And she's like, wow. He's like, I'll drive you in it. We'll go down to wherever the big wants us.
Right, because he wants them to go to some facility, which turns out to be, Wenley Moor or something like that?
Yeah.
Right, there's some... not mining operation, but it's more like
it's a nuclear power facility type thing.
Yeah, it's like a particle accelerator or something like that.
Yeah, particle accelerator, nuclear power, hybrid research thing.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, lots of things, apparently. But the reason they're being called there is because the head of the base, what's his name? Masters? It was Masters, right?
There was Masters and Lawrence. I don't know which one was which.
Actually, well, maybe Masters was the undersecretary.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
No, yeah, it was Lawrence, because Masters died first. Spoiler, but Lawrence is the head of the facility, and he wants to know why there's these power drains happening around the facility.
So he calls in Unit,
Yeah.
and they get the rundown where there's the power outages. They want the doctor to help too because he can potentially figure it out.
Yeah.
Unit wants to like mobilize men and take military action. I don't know why at this point.
They just want to invade the caves, I guess.
Right, I guess at this point they're speculating that something's up in the caves.
They think there's a saboteur in the caves.
I thought only Baker was like, hey, Brig, there might be a saboteur.
Yeah, but I guess Brig was just going along with it to mobilize troops.
Yeah, that was my other main problem with this serial, is the Brig is kind of out of character here, honestly.
The Doctor, too. Neither of them communicate in the whole serial.
Well, this is only the third Doctor's second serial. This might be part of his character, but the Brig, I felt throughout this entire serial, I guess I'm mentioning this now, like back in the second Doctor's run, the Brig was like pretty cooperative with the Doctor and trusted him and everything. And I guess it can be chalked up to like, okay, it's the third Doctor now, and he's kind of more extreme than the second Doctor, but still the Brig, I don't know, he feels like he's in opposition to the Doctor a lot more now.
I blame the Brig less than I blame the Doctor, though, because the Brig still, you could see during this serial that he did trust the Doctor, just not as much. Like, he told Lawrence that if the Doctor did anything, it was on his head and not the Doctor's. And he defended the Doctor for the whole time because Lawrence tried to get the Doctor kicked off the project. But, like, if the Doctor had just told the Brig what he was doing, that would have helped the whole Brig is suspicious of the Doctor. Because I feel he was kind of justified in being suspicious of the Doctor, because the Doctor just was pretty sketch for the first, like, 5 episodes.
And right at the end where he's like, Briggs like, Doctor, what are you doing? He's like, shut up, I'm saving your life.
Well, he was.
He was, but I mean, that's something with the second Doctor too. You know, he could have told everyone what the heck he was doing. Anyway,
yeah, Liz Shaw is more trustworthy of the Doctor in this serial than the Brig is, surprisingly. But like I said, I blame the Brig less than I blame the Doctor.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that fact can be chalked up to like, okay, the Brig has other things to worry about, and he's the one in charge of all the unit people too. So, but yeah, the Doctor checks out. He and Liz go to check out the plant, I guess, the main floor, and the machines aren't working because of the power drainage problem, and apparently some pages have been torn out of the medical record.
Was that ever developed upon? Now that I think about it.
No, it wasn't the medical record. It was
like the power log.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't think that was ever developed upon, was it?
Maybe it was just due to the fact that what's his name went crazy, just tore out some of the pages. I don't know. Yeah, that's another plot thread that wasn't developed upon.
So who tore out those pages? I guess we'll never know.
Potentially, what's his face? Davis's companion.
Or Dr. What's his name?
Quinn. Yeah, that would make sense, actually. But yeah, we don't know. So we find out that 2 people went into the caves earlier. One of them died. That was the scene at the beginning. And the other one went insane. So the Doctor wants to go see him, so they go to the sickbay hospital thing. And this guy's been drawing what look like cave paintings on the wall. And, prehistoric creatures and stuff like that.
And then he tries to assault the Doctor when the Doctor gets near, even though the Doctor looking over Quinn warns the Doctor not to get close to Quinn because he's a bit violent. The Doctor does so anyway and then gets almost strangled to death.
Yeah, pretty much. So, the Doctor deduces that something altered his state of consciousness, I guess, when he went down into the caves. And, that goes along with what's his name's theory of there being some sort of saboteur and or just presence in the caves. So the Doctor decides to go into the caves by himself. And, I mean, he doesn't really accomplish much on this one visit.
Well, besides seeing Godzilla,
the
dinosaur, or maybe he saw a Silurian. I don't remember.
No, he saw the giant dinosaur thing, but I thought those were like another subspecies of Silurian. That's what they kind of implied when the Doctor. Yeah, he sees one
I
of those
don't know.
things, and then This is the start of episode 2. He comes back, and based on evidence he saw in the caves, I guess he deduces that there are probably 2 species of creatures or subspecies living down there. So that's what I thought. Like the intelligent Silurians were one of the subspecies, and then the giant Godzilla things were the other.
I guess.
But the giant Godzilla things don't really play too prominently into the plot at all.
Yeah, because it looked like there was only one.
Yeah, and I mean, it didn't move at all. That props budget, but
The Silurian costumes, though.
So yeah, after the Doctor notifies everyone that there are dinosaurs in the caves, they're like, well, we have to deal with that. So Baker and some other guys, I guess, mobilize into the caves, and one of the people sees one of the humanoid Silurians, spoiler, they're humanoid Silurians, shoots at it, I guess injures it. Was that?
Yeah.
So it runs away, and it winds up above ground. And it keeps running.
And ends up in a barn.
Right, and you see it from first person perspective here. And I guess I didn't realize they were eyes even with this scene, but yeah, the Silurians have 3 eyes, and one of them is red, and it's on their forehead.
It has some untold powers that just seem to conform to the plot.
Yeah, basically, plot device eye. But during this first-person scene, the screen is like divided into 3 portions, with the top portion being red.
Yeah. But it wasn't like horizontal portions, it was like triangularly divided into thirds.
Right, it was basically a circle and then divided into 3.
Yeah.
Really annoying vision on the Silurians' part.
Yeah, because instead of just having the screen with that overlay on, they like triplicated all the things on the screen so that they appeared in each segment individually.
Yeah. But yeah, it winds up in a barn. And is this the part where Quinn goes down into the Silurian?
Quinn goes into the cave, and you find out Quinn has been working with the Silurians, basically giving them the okay to steal power from the cyclotron in exchange for scientific knowledge. But they haven't told him anything yet, and they tell him that they'll tell him some things after he goes and recaptures the Silurian that got injured and escaped above ground.
Right. And that's the first time you see the Silurian headquarters, which is in the caves. But I wanted to mention that I actually kind of liked it, or I liked the set they used for it, because one, it still looked cave-ish, but it was differentiated from the rest of the caves by that sort of green glow, almost, and it looked pretty good. And I don't know, it kind of fit with the whole prehistoric theme. It looked like some sort of ancient cavern that had been locked away for centuries or whatever. And the Silurians had all this advanced technology, but it still looked semi-ancient the way they did it, and I thought they did a pretty good job of that.
Because you find out later that the Silurians owned, quote-unquote, the Earth before the humans evolved from apes.
Right. And what was I going to say? Oh, right. They wouldn't have been able to do this without color. Like, if this was in the first or second Doctor's run, there wouldn't have been much differentiation between the caves proper and the Silurian base. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty nice. Apparently there are also Silurians on Mondas.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I read that on their wiki page.
Mondas was a twin Earth, I guess.
Yeah.
Were they cyber Silurians?
No. I guess not. I mean, not exactly sure, but
there's a fan fiction idea for people. Anyway, so the Brigadier had like local places being on alert for anything weird, and one of the police officers, or the police chief, calls him and tells him someone on a farm is called in about like a lizard creature attacking her husband. So
and the guy who gets attacked dies.
He does?
Yeah, doesn't, or I thought he did, but I actually think I skipped him on my death count.
Because I didn't count him.
No, it was Squire. His name was Squire. That's who it was. Yeah, I guess I was just surprised that a random one-off character had a name. Anyway.
A lot of one-off characters in the serial who just get killed off have names.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
So the Doctor, Big, and Liz go to investigate, and they recognize, I guess, a footprint, and the Brig is still skeptical of, I guess, them. Well, the Doctor like briefly mentions that they're like lizard-like, and no one believes him because it's only been him and Quinn so far that have seen him, plus the Brig and his little troop. So
Well, plus Quinn is
yeah.
also working with the Silurians, so
And Lawrence is pretty skeptical of the whole lizard creature thing, and he's basically roadblocking Unit every step of the way. But since the Brig saw one of the lizard men, he believes it to be hostile since it attacked Squire, the guy in the barn. But the Doctor believes that it only attacked in self-defense.
yep.
But they decide to set out on a search pattern because they decided it couldn't have gone far. And then Quinn shows up and is like, "Hey guys."
Pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
They're like, "Quinn, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Well, I was on my way to the store and I just happened to come across this pleasant barn." Something like that.
He says he's on the way to the base, and then when Liz wants to go, the Doctor wants Liz to go back to the base to like study some things. So he asks if Quinn can give her a ride. He's like, no, I actually need to go into town to get something fixed with my car. And then Liz is like, wait a minute. Well, after Quinn leaves, she's like, wait a minute, Doctor. The town is the opposite direction of the base. Why would he come all the way out here if he was just going to town? It's like way out of his way.
So the Doctor thinks this is pretty sketchy, and it is. So he decides to follow Quinn. Also, I think we forgot to mention, I think this came up already, the plot thread with the Silurian blood that was found or whatever. And that's how they deduce that they're lizards or something like that. But yeah, it's not really important. Again, it's not really expanded upon. So yeah, the Doctor decides to follow Quinn, and he goes back to his house, actually. Where he's actually harboring the Silurian.
Yeah, because in the process of going back to his house, he captures the Silurian. But he sort of gets found out because the little thing he was given to get the Silurian to come to him makes this beep, beep, beep noise to like lure the Silurian closer. And some of the guys heard that out in the search party, so they think someone out there is being pretty sketch.
And they're right.
Yeah.
So the Doctor shows up at Quinn's house and he's like passively aggressively questioning him. He's like, "So Quinn, it's pretty hot and humid inside your house, isn't it? Perfect environment for reptiles."
Quinn's like, what do you mean? What are you
Thermostat's broken.
I'll get it fixed later. The Doctor's like, well, I can take a look at it. He's like, no.
Honestly, if I was Quinn, and this would be perfectly justified, I'd just be like, "Doctor, what are you doing here? This is my house. Please just leave."
Yeah, the Doctor does just barge into the house.
Yeah. Like, honestly, if Quinn just said that, no one would think that would be weird.
Yeah.
But no, he acts all,
A sketch.
yeah, essentially.
So the Doctor's like, okay, well, I'll just leave then. And then Quinn, back at the base, they're all questioning where Quinn is, and everyone's like, oh, he's just at his cottage. And then Quinn's, like, assistant, I guess.
I forget
What's
her
her
name.
name?
It started with a D.
It was Davies.
It wasn't, no, it wasn't that similar to Davis, the guy who died.
Yeah, well, she goes to Quinn's cottage.
And she knows about the Silurians, too.
Yeah. Well, episode 2 ends with Liz being attacked by the Silurian, but that happened just before the Doctor came to
we
Quinn's
were
house.
into episode 3
Yeah,
at this point.
Anyway, Quinn's assistant goes to... Dawson goes to Quinn's cottage and is like, yo, what's going on, Quinn? He's like, they haven't told me anything yet, but I have one of them captive now. And she's like, what? Quinn, that's a bad idea. What are you doing, Quinn? He's like, don't worry about me. I've got this under control. Anyway, back at the base, the Doctor and Liz break into Quinn's office.
And but also, doesn't Dawson want Quinn to tell everyone about the Silurians or something like that? Yeah, it's the only good idea she had this entire serial. But yeah, they break into Quinn's office and they
find the globe of the Earth.
Yeah, Pangea.
Yeah, Pangea.
Not really sure why he needs the globe of Pangea. I mean, yeah, the Silurians are from that period, but
more unresolved plot threads.
Maybe he was using it to explain how the continents had drifted or something like that. I don't know. We can only speculate, really, because they don't really go into it. So the doctor's like, this is what the Earth looked like in the Silurian period.
Yeah, and that's why they're called the Silurians. And as I read the wiki, turns out that's a total misnomer. Because the lizard people hadn't evolved yet during the Silurian era.
Lizard people never evolved at all.
I know, but reptiles in general hadn't evolved during the Silurian era. So it's actually a total misnomer, but
whatever. So yeah, the doctor decides to go back to Quinn's house and sneak around.
But he's dead.
Yeah. I don't really know how the Silurian killed him, I guess with its eye thing, but he looked pretty peaceful just sitting there in his chair.
Yeah, then the doctor closes his eyes.
Yep. And then the Silurian shows up, and then this dread-inducing music starts playing, and that's where episode 3 ends.
Yeah, and then episode 4, the doctor just starts talking to the Silurian.
No, this was the best cliffhanger resolution on the entire show so far, not gonna lie. Because it starts with the scene from episode 3 with the dun 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 playing, and then the doctor just sticks out his hand and he's like, "Hi, I'm the doctor." And the Silurians, as we find out later, or not as we find out later, as we already found out, can communicate with humans, but this Silurian kind of just runs away.
Yeah, I don't know what happens. I could try and explain it, but I don't know.
I guess it was just scared or something. And
more unresolved plot threads.
But yeah, that it just leaves. So the doctor
goes back to the base and, in a just brilliant show, decides not to tell anyone that Quinn is dead except Liz. He's like, yeah, Quinn is dead. It's probably the Silurians.
Well, I guess he didn't want UNIT to start taking military action, because if they learned that one of the Silurians killed Quinn,
I guess, but they end up doing that anyway. So
yeah, I mean, he doesn't really prevent anything.
he decides that. Okay, well, we should mention the other plot thread that does get resolved. That Lawrence, the undersecretary, is coming to investigate the base because I guess Lawrence is kind of being investigated because of the power failures and the whole "we need more technology" thing. Because Lawrence is still adamant that it's a technology problem and not lizard people in the caves.
Right. And that's Masters, right? The undersecretary.
Yeah. So he shows up, and surprisingly, he's pretty receptive to the whole lizard people in the cave thing.
Oh, there was also the thing with the baker being injured.
Yeah.
I believe that already happened. Did it?
I don't know.
I don't remember, actually. Well, yeah, he goes into the caves at the same time almost as the doctor.
Yeah.
Because they're captured together.
Well, they captured Baker before the doctor.
Yeah. And they're locked up together.
Yeah, well, that's coming. But, yeah, the unit is asking for more men from the undersecretary as well as his higher-ups. But the undersecretary is like, well, I can't authorize any more military action because we don't really know what's in those caves. And the doctor decides to not tell anyone he's going into the caves except Liz, and then go into the caves and try and make peace with the Silurians.
Right. He still believes that they're peaceful. Correctly so, well, yeah. for the most part. I mean, until that coup happens, but...
Yeah, and he keeps telling the Brig not to send, like, an army down to the caves, but he doesn't tell the Brig why. He's just like, no, you shouldn't go down there and kill them all. But he doesn't tell them, about the whole, we could try and make peace first.
Well, he kind of does that at the end of 7, and look how that worked out. Anyway...
Yeah, because at the end of 7, they were already at war.
I guess, but
yeah, so basically at this point, because the Silurian in the barn attacked Squire and Liz, the other Silurian killed the guy at the beginning, they believe the Silurians are dangerous, and the Silurians, because one of them shot the one who ended up in the barn, believe the humans are dangerous, even though both sides are based entirely on like one situation.
Well, I mean, they are both dangerous, but in both situations, they thought the other side provoked them.
Yeah.
So this is another Ice Warriors case of just both sides jumping to way too many conclusions.
Yeah, way too many conclusions.
But yeah, the Doctor goes down into the caves and is captured.
Unsurprisingly.
And meanwhile, Baker has escaped from the medical bay and has decided to go down into the caves himself, and he's also captured.
Yeah, he was captured just before the Doctor. Because when they bring the Doctor in, they mention that the other one's not talking, as like referring to Baker.
So they get locked up in the same cell, and Baker's like, so what are you in for? No.
Oh, no, we forgot the whole scene where Baker was locked up, and the Doctor and Liz were down in the caves, and they saw Baker, and then Baker's like, call for help, and they're like, okay, we'll go get help. And then they go above ground, but then the Doctor just comes back to try and make peace later.
Wait, that happens?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
And then Baker's like, so did you call for help? And he's like, well, they're coming, whether I want them to or not.
Oh, right, because that's why the unit people come down. Okay. So yeah, some unit people follow them down in there, a search party, basically.
And the Doctor tells the Silurians about them in an attempt to show them that he's peaceful and he only wants to make peace.
Right. But they're like, well, we're having none of that. So they trap the search party. The search party arrives at the Silurian headquarters, essentially, but they get trapped in some sort of small room where one of the guys starts to go crazy for some reason after like 5 minutes. But
well, they were running out of oxygen.
I guess I thought it had only been like 5 minutes.
Well, the Big says they've got enough oxygen for 1 or 2 hours, and then it cuts to later when they're running out of oxygen.
Okay, I didn't notice that. But yeah, so episode 4 ends with the Silurian telling the Doctor that he's going to kill all of them.
Yeah.
And it was actually pretty funny. The Doctor says to Baker, well, at least there's the chance that they might make peace. And the Silurian marches in. He's like, hey, Doctor, I'm going to kill everyone, okay?
Okay. And the Baker's like, what have you done, Doctor?
The Silurian... Actually, I was kind of confused here, because the Silurian actually does say it has destroyed the search party.
Yeah.
But it hasn't.
Yeah, it just walled them in.
Yeah, I guess it was just trying to intimidate the Doctor, possibly.
Or maybe he's just assuming they won't get out and they'll just die of oxygen deprivation in the end.
Another wrong assumption.
Yeah.
Maybe it was something with the script editing or something.
I don't know.
But yeah, that was kind of strange.
Yeah, then he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill you next, Doctor. And then he starts using his third eye on the Doctor, and then he starts dying, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever the third eye does.
It just does whatever is useful to the plot.
Well, yeah. In this serial, we saw it kill people, knock people out, blow a hole in a wall, and revive the other Silurians.
Yeah. Or at least operate the machinery.
Yeah. And kill other Silurians.
I'm surprised the Silurians lost.
Yeah.
That super OP third eye.
It's like the first Doctor's ring that had magical powers the one time it showed up, but they just never used it again.
And I actually forgot to mention this 2 weeks ago in the War Games, but if the Time Lords can materialize barriers, then wouldn't that have actually come in useful for the Doctor, like, on multiple occasions?
Oh yeah, in this serial, the third Doctor mentions his sonic screwdriver because he's looking at a piece of equipment. He's like, where's my sonic screwdriver? And then
I don't remember that.
Lawrence is like, don't you go planning to disassemble that high-quality equipment with a screwdriver. It's like, oh, it's not just any screwdriver. But then there's another plot thread that's just not resolved, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to where we were.
Baker... They're going to perform some experiments on Baker. Was this later?
That's after the Doctor goes to talk to the Silurian leader.
Right, he convinces the Silurian leader to go talk to him. So, and also convinces the Silurian leader to try and make peace with the humans. Yeah, Silurian leader is the only one who's actually listening to reason.
Yeah, the other random Silurian just wants to kill all the humans. Or one of the other random Silurians, like there was like 4 or 5.
Yeah. So I think at this point the Silurian leader explains how the Earth used to be like theirs millions of years ago, and but then an asteroid or some celestial body was going to they used their advanced technology to calculate that some sort of celestial body was going to smash into the Earth and kill everything. So they put themselves into hibernation, went underground.
Yeah.
But turns out the celestial body was actually the moon, and it never hit anything and destroyed anything.
Yeah.
So they basically went into hibernation for nothing. And so they recently woke up and found that humans had taken over, essentially, and they're pissed.
Yeah, well, and then the doctor mentions that there are areas on the Earth that are too hot for the humans and that the Silurians can live there because they'll thrive in that environment. The leader's like, sounds good to me.
I guess. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen when overpopulation comes into play. I mean, there's only so many, like, volcanoes or super hot areas where they can live.
Yeah, well, anyway.
But that's not really important because of what happens in episode 7.
Yeah.
And episodes
and 6.
5 and 6.
Anyway, 5, one of the other Silurians decides that they're going to kill all the humans another way by using this virus that killed off the apes before. So they infect Baker and then send him off on his way. And then they use the third eye to convince Baker in his sleep that he just escaped and wasn't just let go. So there's another use for the third eye, implanting false memories. Anyway.
So the Silurian leader knows what the upstart Silurians are doing. It's true.
I guess, yeah.
He knows what they're doing, so he gives the doctor the antidote to, or he gives them an isolated
vial of the virus, I guess.
Yeah.
So the doctor can try to develop an antidote.
Yeah. And he's like, it's all on you, doctor, now. The only way the human race won't be extinguished is if you develop the antidote. Mm-hmm. So he sets the doctor free to go do that, and then dies. The
upstart's like, you are not fit to rule. I'm leader now.
He uses his third eye to kill him.
And then they go to the surface, and Baker is returned, raving about how the doctor's given away their whole plans, and that's why they got captured. Oh yeah, the leader Silurian let the Brigadier and his troops go in the cave.
Yeah.
Or
so
whatever
the
troops
brig
were
is already
left.
back. Yeah, because some of them died.
The brig mentions they lost a lot of good men in those caves.
Yeah, so we don't know how many of those people died.
Yeah, we're going to use 3 letters for this serial.
2 of them haven't even appeared yet, and it's already episode 5.
And so Baker's raving about that, and he's like, the doctor's giving us all away. We need to kill the doctor, or whatever. And then the doctor's like, no, I wouldn't do that. Everyone stand way back from Baker. He's been infected. And Baker's like, no, I don't believe you. You're conjuring up stories to get them to turn against me.
But then we see Baker's arm, well, his wrist, really, and honestly, this actually looked pretty good. Like it.
Yeah.
It was basically zombified, essentially, is what it was, and I don't know. It actually maybe it was because it was only on screen for like a split second, but props to the
makeup department.
Yeah, because this actually looked pretty good. I mean, even by today,
during everybody dying scene, which we're about to get to.
Yeah,
where everybody who was dying had it on too.
I mean, this must have been pretty impressive back in '70 because this looked.
It still looks impressive.
Yeah. Watch them blow all their budget on this one thing, like they did in season 6 with the explosions.
Well, this is four serials, so.
Yeah, but it's
whatever.
Essentially, well, it's less episodes, but whatever.
Yeah, but Baker gets taken to a hospital without the doctor knowing. The doctor's like, no, we need to contain it. No. And Masters decides to return to London because he decides his job here is done, and
it turns out he's been infected.
Baker dies at the hospital, and the doctor sees him die.
Right, he and the brig rush over there.
And he dies, and then the doctor's like, this is the first one of many.
I wonder if that hospital was where the guy at the beginning was, or if that was on the base. It's not really important. I'm just curious. Like, was that on the base, or did they go to the hospital? Who knows?
It's not explained.
But yeah, so in episode 6, a bunch of people start dying in the streets of London quickly.
Yeah, real quickly. Although somehow Masters survives for a lot longer than the people he infected.
Yeah, I think it varied on person by person, because it showed a lot of people dying, some more drawn out than others.
Damn it, Masters.
Well, down in the Silurian base, the new leader, the one who killed the old leader, asks one of the other Silurians if the disease has killed everyone yet, and I was like, dude, it's been 5 minutes.
5 minutes is a bit of an understatement, but yeah,
Okay.
it hasn't been more than a couple hours probably.
Yeah.
Because Monsters gets all the way to the train station at least and takes the train to London. It's been a couple hours.
Yeah, I mean...
But still, it's not that long.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the disease is pretty impressive. It kills an impressive number of people in a short amount of time. But still, it's not been long enough to wipe out everyone.
Yeah, well, at some point, the Brig mentions he got a phone call that the virus is spread all the way to France. And I was like, what?
Wait, what? I didn't notice that at all.
No, yeah, the Brig gets a call. It's like, it's spread overseas. It's in France. And this is like, oh,
What?
jeez.
All right. So yeah, the doctor is holed up in his lab trying to develop an antidote, and Liz too.
He develops the first thing he develops is like a vaccine for everyone in the hospital, like inoculation. So everyone,
which they have to keep
taking.
taking.
Yeah, so everyone in the base gets inoculated except Lawrence,
Refuses to take it.
and predictably dies of the disease.
But not before going crazy. I wonder if that was an effect of the disease, is that you go crazy before you die.
Lawrence was pretty close to going off the rocker like at the beginning of the series.
Yeah. But yeah, he tries to kill the brig before his death.
Yeah, and he raves about how Unit has been his downfall and has ruined his life's work.
Not that it really matters, because he's about to
Die.
croak. Yeah, I was surprised. Never mind. Actually, it's not important.
Anyway, the Doctor successfully develops an antidote, a cure, and
after isolating it.
Well, he gets like all those vials of known
Whatever. Yeah.
to his delivered to his lab, and Liz mentions that it's like must be every medicine in the world. But he develops a cure. After testing it on someone, he's like, all right, I'm going to go write down the cure for you. And the Silurians realize that the Doctor is the sole reason that the cure is being developed, so they decide to go capture him. And they decide to blow a hole in the wall with their third eye.
So they do capture him, and this is the point where I was like, wouldn't it have been a good idea to reawaken some more Silurians? Because there were like all of 3 or 4 of them awake at this point. And I mean, they did shut off the generators to stop any more power from being drained. But still, you think they would have been able to revive a few more of them instead of staging an entire invasion into enemy territory with 3 people.
Well, once they get the Doctor back, there's that one that's trying to revive one. It's like, is it working? It's like, no, we need the power. Which is why they take the Doctor back to the cyclotron. Yeah, that's what it was called, the cyclotron. I just read that now.
No, you said it before in this episode, yeah. But yeah, they kidnap the Doctor, essentially, and a few more Unit people die.
Liz,
on his way back. We're into episode 7 now.
Liz and Big are having a minor crisis in the control room that they set up. People keep calling, wondering where this vaccine is, and the Big keeps going, don't worry, he's under lots of stress, he's gonna have it soon. And Liz is like, just give him a little bit more time. And then Liz is like, well, I better go check on him.
That's when they find out he's been kidnapped.
Yeah, and she brings all these papers back, and the Brig is like, quick, tell him the vaccine. He's like, I don't know which of these formulas is the vaccine.
So the Silurians show back up. This is when a few more Unit soldiers die. Apparently, not only can they blow holes in walls with their third eye, they can rematerialize walls too. But yeah, they bring the Doctor back because they need the cyclotron back on. And I wasn't paying attention to the sci-fi mumbo-jumbo science-ish stuff that went on here, but for some reason they need to turn it on. They essentially need to crank it up to 11 or something like that.
Oh, well, they need to power the reawakening units, and they need to power this machine that they're going to plug directly into the cyclotron that's basically going to vaporize the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah, that.
Or remove the
Van Allen belt.
Yeah.
Whatever it was called.
The Van Halen belt.
And I think I've vaguely heard about this before.
Yeah, it's like the magnetic field of the Earth interacting with like radiation, so it forms this protective barrier against like some harmful radiation from the sun, something like that.
Sounds made up, but apparently it's
No,
real.
it's real, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like something some sci-fi writer would come up with, but no, apparently it's a real thing. But yeah, once that's gone, the Earth will get way hotter. All the humans will die, but it'll be a perfect temperature for the Silurians because they're cold-blooded. And this is the point where I was like, that subspecies isn't going to play prominently into the plot, is it? And I was right.
It only appeared like twice more since the beginning, and one of those was where the Doctor's trying to escape, and one was when Baker was trying to escape.
It could have come into play in like episode 7 at some point, but no, it doesn't.
Anyway, the Brig is like, Doctor, what are you doing? You're gonna kill all of us. And the Doctor's like, shut up, I'm trying to save your life, Brig.
Again, they're not really cooperating.
Maybe the Doctor was just pissed off that the Brig like invaded the caves.
Understandably, and maybe the Brig was understandably pissed off that the Doctor was.
There was just a lot of miscommunication in this serial, I think, which is why everybody was just ended up being mad at each other. Because I mean, the Brig was mad at the Doctor for like going into the caves all the time without telling anyone what he was going to do, and the Doctor was mad at the Brig for invading the caves, even though he didn't tell the Brig what he was doing down in the caves. And
that results in genocide again. But
yeah, at the Brig's hand.
So yeah, the Doctor is manning the controls or something, and I guess he lies or stretches the truth to the Silurians that the reactor being powered as much as it is going to cause everything to blow up, killing everyone or something like that. I wasn't really paying attention to this.
He has Liz drop all of the uranium into the cyclotron at once instead of one at a time, which overloads the reactor, which is why it's going to blow up.
So the Silurians decide smartly that they're going to go back into hibernation to escape the explosion.
And they just leave everyone there instead of killing them.
Well, I guess they assumed the explosion was going to happen like in a few minutes.
Yeah, just like the oxygen deprivation. They just assume the humans are going to die. Incorrectly again.
Yeah, anyway, they go back down to their base, and apparently they need one Silurian left unhibernated to put everyone else into hibernation. So the new leader decides to sacrifice himself to do that. And
the Doctor
makes you think like maybe millions of years ago there was one Silurian who sacrificed himself to save everyone.
There must have been, I guess.
Yeah. Spin-off.
No.
I'd watch it.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I would.
What would it be
okay,
about?
Maybe I would. I don't know.
What?
Maybe it would be about the impending destruction of the Earth at the hands of the Moon, and the Silurians coming to terms with having to die.
That's like a season of episodes tops.
Yeah, but it could still be a spin-off.
So the Doctor is like, well, it'd be a good idea first to leave now. The Brig's like, we can't. They shut down the elevator. The Doctor's like, oh.
Smart Silurians.
But the Doctor somehow does some more science mumbo-jumbo and shuts down the reactor, even though we said it was completely irreversible that it was going to blow up. So, and then they go down into the caves to make sure they're all in hibernation, and the new leader discovers that they survived, so he tries to start unhibernating people.
And then the Brig kills him. Or you think he kills him, but apparently he survives. But he's dead on the floor as far as they know, so they leave.
Yeah, and the Doctor's like, well, we'll reawaken them one at a time and reintegrate them into society peacefully. And the Brig is like, oh, really, Doctor?
No.
Really, Doctor? So the Doctor leaves to go get more scientists with Liz, and as they're driving away...
the Brig orders the Silurian base to be blown up, killing everyone, and you find out the new leader isn't dead. He wakes up to the explosions and dies, presumably in a cave-in or an explosion.
Yeah. And this confused me because I thought the Brig was just going to seal the caves off, right? Like, makes sense. I mean, that nobody dies and it keeps them in the caves for a while. But no, then the explosions go off and they're like way over the top with the explosions.
You see them from the surface.
And then, the Doctor's like, he's killed them all. They were a peaceful alien species, and he's killed them all.
And then he drives away, and it ends on that note.
Yeah, this is one of the most depressing endings of any serial so far, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we had the War Games. That's kind of
Yeah. I mean, excluding Doctor Regeneration
Yeah.
serials, because those are depressing for their own right.
The
Sad
only-
for their own right, because the Doctor leaves.
Yeah, the only comparable serial I can think of is the Daleks' Master Plan.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, this was probably more dark at the end.
Yeah, mainly because the serial dealt with like xenophobia for the whole serial as one of its themes, and how the Doctor wanted to just make peaceful amends with the Silurians, and then they start killing them, and then in the end they just kill them all off, much to the Doctor's distress, I guess.
Yeah. And even going back to the Daleks' Master Plan, this is probably even more dark because in the Daleks' Master Plan we had two sides or multiple sides. Actually, it's pretty convoluted, but they were all dealing with powers they knew could destroy everything. Like everyone in that situation knew what was going on and knew that they were in danger and that everyone might die. But here it was just at the end, oh, let's just blow up that entire race.
Yeah.
When they could have done nothing about it, as far as they knew.
And the serial was,
correctly assumed.
Serial was different in compared to the other ones in that, to a lot of them, in that it wasn't the Doctor trying to save the world until the end when the Silurians turned on them. For most of the serial, it was the Doctor just trying to get the Silurians to be peaceful and make amends with UNIT.
Yeah, and I mean the world was never even in danger until
a young upstart Silurian decides it should be. But yeah, who knows how this is going to play out for the Doctor and Briggs relationship, because I feel like this is going to deal a heavy blow.
Yeah, or they could just gloss over it and never bring it up again.
Yeah, I doubt they're going to do that, actually. This would be a pretty big thing to just gloss over.
Yeah.
It is left ambiguous at the end whether the Brig destroyed them of his own accord or whether he was given orders from higher up. Because Liz mentions that the Brig was under orders from, his command.
Yeah, that's true.
But the Brig, just decides to blow them up. So it's ambiguous whether the Brig decided to do it himself or not. But, yeah, that's...
Wow.
They do come back, though, so maybe some of them survive somehow.
Well, like I was saying, there's some on Mondas. They're not going to say anything more on that.
This serial reminds me of one in the reboot, where basically the same plot happens, where the Silurians wake up and the Doctor tries to get them to be peaceful with the humans.
So basically they just reuse this plot later on.
I guess. It was a bit different, though, I think. I don't remember the exact plot of the episode, because I watched it a while ago. They
probably just watched this, said that, hey, nobody probably remembers this, we can just use this again, and did.
Yeah, and the Silurians look way different in the reboot.
Yeah, they look way different when they come back in the classic series, too.
They way up the costume budget, I guess.
Yeah, I was reading their wiki page a little bit, and there are apparently a lot more different subspecies, which kind of makes sense why there's these two subspecies here.
And how they survive, I guess. Because maybe there's other hibernation centers would be how they survived. Presumably they didn't just put all their eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wanted to talk about the Silurian costumes, because I thought they were pretty good. I mean, they weren't amazing, but they kind of look like something you'd see in Power Rangers or something like that.
Yeah, now that you say that, yeah. The voices kind of reminded me of the Crotons.
Yeah, their voices were pretty cool. They honestly looked more like amphibians than reptiles to me.
Yeah, and reading the wiki page mentions that in a couple serials, their aquatic cousins will show up. So
yeah, that divergent species line thing. But yeah,
yeah, pretty dark serial. That ends that. So I was thinking this week about the season 6B theory, and I've
Okay.
come up with a justification that doesn't require too much bending of the rules, all right?
Okay.
All right, so that we know the Doctor's sentence is to be exiled to Earth, right?
Yeah.
And to be forcibly regenerated, but we don't know how long he'll be exiled on Earth, right? So my theory is that they sent him on all of these suicide missions as kind of a, if you do these missions, we'll shorten the length of your exile type thing.
Okay.
So they didn't mind sending him on these missions because they were like missions where pretty much anyone would die if they did these missions, right? So
Okay.
if he went on the mission and he died, he'd be, still regenerate anyway. Like they were going to force him to do so. So,
All right.
and then, but for every mission he did, maybe they shortened the length of his exile on Earth.
Okay.
So he agrees to do these, and then in the end, like they're out of missions. Like, all right, well, we're going to exile you now. And he's like, okay. So they send him to Earth at the beginning of Spearhead from space.
And regenerate him then.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
that's how I believe it plays out. That's my theory as of now. And
All right. Yeah.
I'm sticking to it.
I'll go along with that. There's not really many holes to poke in that.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I did while I was walking my dog this week. But yeah, so that I guess wraps this up. Pretty good serial,
Yeah. More enjoyable than Spearhead, in my opinion.
written by a veteran writer of the show so far, Malcolm Hulke, who, if you recognize his name, also co-wrote the War Games. So
Yep.
he also wrote some other things, but I'm blanking on what they were. But most of them were good serials, so he's still got a pretty good track record. So check us out on iTunes. Check us out on YouTube, both at Trust Your Doctor. Check out the website at decorativevegetable.com and send us an email at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com if you have any questions, concerns, fan fiction,
About the
fan art.
Silurian hibernation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Check us out on Facebook, also at Trust Your Doctor. And next week we're watching The Ambassadors of Death. So we'll see how the relationship between the Doctor and the Brig plays out then. But until then, the end.